And welcome to the I Love CVille Show. Thank you kindly for joining us. Today's program presented by Scott Wagner Integrated Medicine. Who's got your back? Dr. Wagner and his team at Scott Wagner Integrated Medicine have your back, and they're changing people's lives through their clinic on Zan Road. A lot we're going to cover on today's show. We have the canceled First Night Virginia New Year's Eve celebration. The news broke yesterday on the I Love CVille Network, courtesy of our director, Judah Whitcower. The news we broke yesterday on this network then evolved into news on the 11 o'clock broadcast of NBC 29, and I'm being told is percolating and circulating in newsrooms elsewhere. We'll talk who, what, when, where, why when it comes to First Night Virginia getting canceled today on this talk show. We will also talk about the police chief for the city of Charlottesville. According to the Charlottesville City Council agenda, a police chief will be appointed by interim city manager Michael Rogers on Monday. I'm looking at the action items on the agenda, and interim city manager Michael Rogers will make an appointment for a chief of police this coming Monday. What a turnaround after a forum held earlier this week to interview and vet candidates. That tells me the decision was made even before the forum started. I'll give you my take again, who I think the police chief should be. I talked about this earlier in the week, and we'll talk expectations for the council meeting on Monday, which is a big one. Also on today's program, we're going to talk Ivy Road and the UVA Foundation purchasing much of the property along that corridor. I've been highlighting these transactions, which Sean Tubbs has covered very well on Town Crier Productions, and we got a fantastic take from Deep Throat. Deep Throat, are you watching today? Give me a little heads up if you're watching. He sent me a message yesterday at the tail end of the program about my take that I offered on the Lewis Mountain neighborhood. I explained yesterday that the Lewis Mountain neighborhood is going to eventually become like the Jefferson Park Avenue area or the 14th Street area, which were once single-family detached homes for families living in the city of Charlottesville. Then they became student housing, and now they are undoubtedly student housing in areas for young adults, young men, young women, students to spend $1,000 plus more a month to rent a bedroom as they're walking to and from grounds and classes at the University of Virginia. That topic's going to be on today's show. I'll relay to you what Anonymous had to say in DM fashion that I thought was maybe his best take yet. Also on today's program, we're going to talk the school board meeting from last night. Much like the police chief position in the city of Charlottesville, the school board of Albemarle County hosted a forum. And in this forum, 9 candidates were interviewed, interacted with the board and the public, in person and via live stream, on why they should be the interim pick for the Whitehall seat on the Albemarle County School Board, which David Oberg, a seat that David Oberg has left empty after he resigned unexpectedly. I was impressed with the candidates. I was taken aback with how qualified so many of these candidates were. I was also impressed and taken aback by how many of the candidates yesterday, the meeting started at 4 p.m., said that they would be willing to run for the 4-year school board seat after the interim 1-year seat concludes. It further justifies or fortifies statements I've made throughout the year that schools and education will be front and center for elections. A microcosm was the engagement we saw yesterday at the Albemarle County School Board meeting, where 9 people were willing to give their most important and precious commodity, their time, to fill an interim seat for 1 year, with many of them saying they would undoubtedly run for the seat in a 4-year term following the conclusion of the interim period. People want to get involved with schools. We'll talk Brennan Armstrong today. I was shocked by this news. Maybe you were not. I understand the 2022 campaign did not go according to plan for Brennan Armstrong, but did anyone think that Brennan Armstrong, who is basically, from a statistics standpoint, the most accomplished quarterback in UVA football history, from a stats standpoint, he is the most accomplished quarterback. I'm not talking about from a winning standpoint, not winning games, not winning bowl championships, but from a statistics standpoint, Brennan Armstrong is the most accomplished quarterback and the University of Virginia football history. And we've had some phenomenal gunslingers. Sean Moore, Mikowski, Matt Schaub, Marcus Hagans, Groh. I mean, we've had some really good Bryce Perkins. Armstrong, from a stat standpoint, beats all those guys. He announces yesterday that he's transferring. He's put his name into the transfer portal. I'm going to give you my take on Armstrong, and whether or not he would make a good quarterback for another school to pick up, and whether or not Brennan Armstrong could be a good quarterback for our National Football League, an NFL football team. Also on today's program, we are going to highlight Tom Powell's toy lift that is going on right now. There are stakeholders in our community that legitimately are sitting in a bucket on a crane, 10s, 50, 60, I don't know the height, 70, 80 feet in the air. It was in the low 20s this morning when I woke up in eastern Albemarle County. They're freezing their buns off for the purpose of raising gifts, toys, and funds for underprivileged children in this community. I love it. I love what it's all about. I love what it's all about, what it stands for, the toy lift, what Tom Powell has created. I'll give you the history of Tom Powell's toy lift today on the I Love CVille show. I want to go to a 2-shot and welcome Judah Wickhauer to the program. Judah Wickhauer, the jack of all zips, J-Dubs. You broke news yesterday.
Apparently. Apparently.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Did you realize yesterday when we were having a conversation at the tail end of the program that you were breaking news?
I wouldn't say I think that way. So, no, I didn't think I was breaking news, but I was fairly certain that probably not many people knew.
No one knew.
I mean, unless you've been on the website recently.
Which no one would be.
Yeah.
Why would they go to First Night Virginia until maybe a couple of days, a week before First Night?
Well, it's generally hoped that people are buying tickets and wristbands or whatever more than a day or two before the actual event.
I'd say those purchases generally happen a week in advance of New Year's Eve. First Night Virginia is canceled.
Yeah.
You have the scoop. What you said yesterday on the I Love CVille Network, and then what I posted after the show on the I Love CVille Network, literally turned into a segment on the 11 p.m. newscast of NBC 29.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Do you understand that?
Yeah, I have been told.
What happened? Give us the nitty-gritty.
What happened?
You have intimate firsthand knowledge of why First Night Virginia was canceled. What happened?
Well, you can go on the website and see who is in charge of the event, and as far as I understand it, there just wasn't the bandwidth to go out and get the bands, the acts, just there wasn't the bandwidth to organize the whole thing. I'm guessing it hadn't gotten started early enough, and at some point someone realized, look, this isn't going to happen. We might as well just shut it down this year. And I'm hopeful that they will find someone more capable for the leadership in the next year, and we will have an amazing first night next year.
I'm on the website, firstnightva.org. I'm going to the About tab. I'm going to Board and Committee on firstnightva.org. I see the president is Drake Van Castle.
Van de Castle, yeah.
Drake Van de Castle. I see also on the board of directors Chauncey Hutter, Chris Munson, Will Noel, and David Sloan.
That's what I'm seeing.
Those are the board of directors. I'm seeing on the First Night Virginia, on the About tab, when I click Missions and History, I see that First Night Virginia, First Night began in Boston in 1976. Charlottesville's First Night Virginia was the second first night in the nation, established in 1982.
It's pretty wild.
40 years of tradition. Now, it took a brief pause during COVID.
Yeah, as I'm sure a lot of them have.
But we can say with confidence and conviction, the reason this First Night Virginia, and I want to clear a misconception that's happening. First Night Virginia, this one was not canceled because of COVID.
I don't believe it was.
It was not canceled. I can speak with confidence and conviction on that. It was not canceled because of COVID. All the music venues are open. All the restaurants are open. Everything is open. To say this was canceled because of COVID is just not being in touch with reality.
Yeah, I would concur with that assessment.
There is chatter on social, on the I Love CVille Network, that First Night Virginia was canceled because we don't have enough police presence to manage the crowds that come to First Night Virginia. Do you buy that take?
I think that, no, I definitely don't buy that take.
I don't buy that take either. You go first and tell us why.
While it is in the realm of possibility that somebody knew that there weren't going to be enough police for the event, I think normally you would, I mean, considering the acts, the businesses involved in First Night Virginia, you would be, I would imagine you probably have to start preparing for First Night Virginia as soon as the last one ends. So it just doesn't strike me as within the realm of possibility that on New Year's Day of 2022, somebody said, we're not going to have the police for this, so let's not do it. I think there just, like I said, wasn't the bandwidth to go out, get the bands, get the businesses, get everything else that's involved in the event together and organized in time to make it a reality.
I'll say even a more succinct answer. Do we understand why First Night Virginia was not canceled because of short staff and police? Here's a reason for you. We had the Tom Tom Festival. We had the Tom Tom Festival on the downtown mall with an open-air beer garden. The Tom Tom Festival on the downtown mall with an open-air beer garden and tens of thousands of people over the course of the Tom Tom Festival in this open-air beer garden on the downtown mall, hitting Charlottesville And that event was approved, and we still have the same amount of police vacancies as we did during the Tom Tom Festival.
Yeah.
The Tom Tom Festival on the downtown mall has more people than First Night Virginia. The Tom Tom Festival on the downtown mall not only has more people than First Night Virginia attend, but it is a longer event. It's days, where First Night Virginia is a night. Tom Tom Festival on the downtown mall with an open-air beer garden was focused on boozing. It had a designated outdoor refreshment area. First Night Virginia, not focused on boozing. So the folks that say that First Night Virginia was canceled this year because we have a short staff in police in the Charlottesville Police Department, that is not accurate. I just explained a very legitimate argument using empirical data, another event that happened on the downtown mall that was longer in time and had more people populating it, of why that is not a legitimate reason of canceling First Night Virginia.
Yeah.
Here's another topic that's come up. First Night Virginia was canceled because the downtown mall is not safe anymore, because there's a criminal element going on. People are posting on the downtown mall, people are saying on the I Love CVille Network, there's guns and gangs and drugs. And that's why it was canceled. And people don't feel safe going from the parking garage to the downtown mall. I saw those posts on the I Love CVille Network. Judah Wickhauer, do you buy that?
I buy that some people may feel that way, but I don't buy that that's the reason.
Well said, succinctly. I empathize, and it's an unfortunate empathy, that people feel that way about downtown Charlottesville. But as someone that has 2 young children, 2 boys, including one that's not even 4 days old, and a wonderful, beautiful, and caring wife, I 100,000% feel safe bringing our boys and my wife to the downtown mall after hours. Am I going to stay till 12:01 a.m. with our 4-day-old son? No. But we would certainly enjoy dinner on the downtown mall.
Yeah, I was on the downtown mall last night.
Did you feel unsafe?
Not at all.
I didn't feel unsafe at all. I don't feel unsafe at all. Have we had some unfortunate incidents? The OK Corral in the Omni parking lot with the juveniles? Yes. The killing, the murder outside of a bar?
Inside a bar, but...
Started inside the bar, finished outside the bar?
Even so, it was clearly...
an isolated event.
It was not only isolated, but it was directed at a specific person. It wasn't a random, it wasn't a random guy coming onto the downtown mall and just getting crazy. He clearly had a purpose. Not that makes it any better, but I certainly feel more safe knowing that it wasn't just a guy, coming onto the mall and taking aim at random people.
Yeah, he was targeting someone. He hunted someone on the downtown mall. He hunted someone on the downtown mall.
Yeah.
And then fled from Charlottesville to Tennessee, where the Charlottesville Police Department, in conjunction with the U.S. Marshal Service, I'm talking like Harrison Ford in The Fugitive, the U.S. Marshal Service, went hunting this murderer and found him on the lam in Tennessee. That literally is what happened. That literally is what happened. It was an isolated event. Is there a gang problem in Charlottesville and in Albemarle County? Did you see what Albemarle County released yesterday in press conference fashion? Yes, there's a gang problem. There are juveniles and teenagers. They put the number at roughly 50 of them that are identifying as gangs that are running around Albemarle County and Charlottesville shooting things, sometimes people, and stealing cars. Okay? But there are gang problems everywhere.
And that's nothing new.
It's nothing new.
I had my window busted and my old classic iPod stolen out of my car probably 7 or 8 years ago. It's just not, it's... I know it's more visible now.
It's just because we have social media and that we are all so connected by computers in our hands that have much more power than the first spaceship that went to the moon.
Yeah.
The iPhone has more power and capabilities than a ship, a spaceship, a spacecraft that landed on the moon. And because we have these devices in our phones, we are more connected than ever. And that's why from time to time, we feel the world is crashing down around us. Because we get on these devices and we hear about monkeypox. We hear about COVID. We hear about RSV. We hear about the bubonic plague, scurvy. What are the other? Swine flu. We hear about Kanye West, the idiot. Do you see Kanye West, the idiot, yesterday?
I've heard somebody. My friend last night said that he thinks Kanye must be actively just trying to
destroy himself, his brand. Kanye West went on InfoWars.
Yeah.
Yesterday, is that Adam Jones?
And I think he basically said that Hitler's not a bad guy.
Yeah.
He's got a good costume. I don't think he even said he didn't kill Jews.
Kanye West yesterday on InfoWars was wearing a black stocking over his face, defending Hitler, and then proceeded to post on his Twitter account a swastika, and then had his Twitter account banned by Elon Musk. You have to do some obscene stuff, and Musk should have, 100% should have banned Kanye, Ye, whatever, from Twitter. This guy's single-handedly destroying himself and undoubtedly is mentally ill.
No doubt.
Mentally ill. Okay? But my point is this. These things in our hands that have capabilities that a spacecraft that landed on the moon do not have are connecting us in ways of the world like we've never been connected before. And because of that connectivity, we immediately are surrounded or able to read about or experience the doom and gloom that happens everywhere. And it's how we as human beings navigate that doom and gloom, whether we utilize common sense, whether we utilize judgment, whether we utilize deductive reasoning, whether we choose to ignore it. How we interact with that doom and gloom is going to impact or affect our perspective and our quality of lives. And we can read on NBC 29, or we can read on CBS 19, or the Daily Progress, or the CVille, or listen on the I Love CVille Show about a murder on the downtown mall, or the OK Corral in the Omni parking lot. And we can utilize that content to say, hey, it's not safe to go downtown anymore. And that's fine if you want to do that. But the reality is, from someone who works downtown and legitimately spends 60 to 70 hours of his life every week, sometimes 80, downtown, who brings his children, wife, mother-in-law, and father-in-law downtown, to say it's unsafe is not today's reality. It's not today's reality. What downtown does have is a branding issue and a stigma issue. And it needs to utilize influential platforms like this one to change that stigma and that branding issue. And unfortunately, events like First Night Virginia would help change that stigma and branding issue, because First Night Virginia would have offered the community a positive experience of downtown Charlottesville. Canceling First Night Virginia, yes, it's frustrating that we don't have something to do on New Year's Eve that's family friendly. But even more importantly,
it's the image boost.
It's the image boost that we lose.
Yeah.
At a time when downtown needs
an image boost.
The image boost
not
more than
that,
ever.
But the
incremental revenue.
Yeah.
In a time of a recession. That's the true unfortunate nature of canceling First Night Virginia. You lose the image boost. Now, John Blair, who's a friend of the program, we have dubbed him the king of knowledge. When John publishes something on the I Love CVille Network, I read it like 5 times. I respond to everything John publishes, thanking him for writing it. And his content, his perspective, his comments are then woven into the show the next day or the day of 99.99999% of the time. That's how much respect I have for this attorney, former city manager, city attorney, town attorney, father, husband, and just all-around A-plus guy. He wrote this comment yesterday. And I'm going to read it to you, Judah.
Okay.
JM, canceling First Night Virginia is a loss for the city of Charlottesville. I think a fair question for you and your viewers regarding this news. Where did the holidays go for downtown Charlottesville? Outside of the grand illumination, is there a single public event that is festive and holiday-oriented? Cities need the connectivity tissue of public events and a sense of hospitality. Honestly, once First Fridays end in September, downtown Charlottesville basically shuts down in terms of public events from mid-September through March, except for the Halloween Dog Walk and the Grand Illumination until April with the Tom Tom Festival and the Dogwood Parade.
Don't forget the Santa Run.
I want to highlight a couple things, and John would respect these responses because I know John well. NBC 29 literally just tweeted that First Night Virginia was canceled. Friends of CVille, the nonprofit, they are doing live events downtown. So there are other events downtown now. They're calling it Magic on the Mall. They have elves in CVille, the Peppermint Trail, selfies with Santa, the Holly Trolley, and live performances. So a slight correction to the man I tremendously respect, John Blair. There are some now fresh and new events. friendsofcville.org, Judah. friendsofcville.org/holidays for the list. But the essence of his point is this, Judah. And he wrote it so damn well. Cities need the connective tissue of public events and a sense of hospitality to create, nurture, and build community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what I was talking about yesterday with some of the great events that happen every year in Savannah, Georgia. The Shakespeare in the Park, Jazz in the Park. They had an amazing event, the Sidewalk Arts Festival, where you could sign up for a sidewalk square and then use colored chalk to do whatever you want on it. It was a blast. Ran the entire length of the park, and you'd have everything from, recreations of Van Gogh paintings to, Marvel and DC superheroes to, kids drawing pictures of Nemo, anything you can imagine. Great events. And, I think we need more of that in Charlottesville. You're right. It is the connectivity that kind of brings us all together.
Right. Exactly. And I want to highlight this. And I get so demoralized by this comment, okay? What do I love so dearly? You know me better than just about everyone on the planet, right? What would you say some of the aspects of life that I love so dearly are?
I mean, you love CVille. You love real estate. You love working.
What else?
I mean, are you fishing for something?
Love my wife.
Yeah. Well, of course, your family. I mean,
Love
I didn't
my
mean
family.
to leave them out.
I love my kids.
Yeah.
I'm a man of faith. Love for you, whether you want to admit this or not.
Okay.
10 plus years of working together, good times and bad. I love Charlottesville. I name one of my businesses, I Love Charlottesville. I Love CVille. And what demoralizes me so much, and it legitimately makes me emotional, I'm getting emotional now, is when I see on Facebook or on social media or on this network where people say they're boycotting Charlottesville, or this city is collapsing, or this city is a shadow of its former self, or it used to be world class, and they throw shade and they knock it and they kick it. And are we a little down right now?
I mean, don't get me wrong. We do talk a lot about gentrification and the effects of some of the things that have gone on in the last few years.
But that's not unique to Charlottesville.
No, it's
That's not unique to Charlottesville.
It's not unique to Charlottesville.
That's and many municipalities and cities across the country. That is not unique to Charlottesville. We have what so many people want. We have amenities galore. We have enough amenities to fill a Christmas list of 1 million good children. We have breweries and wineries and vineyards and hiking and mountain biking and ACC sports and restaurants and live music and a pedestrian mall. We have quality of life. We're close to D.C. We're close to the beach. We're in the center of the Commonwealth, the center of the Eastern Seaboard. We have so many amenities that I cannot even rattle them off on 1 hour of the I Love CVille show. So, of course, people want to live here. We have quality of life, and we have issues. There's no doubt we have problems. But one of the things that legitimately hurts my soul, it hurts my soul, is when people say they're boycotting or they're kicking Charlottesville and knocking the brand, and they live in Central Virginia. I need everyone that's watching this program, if you live in Fluvanna, Orange, Louisa, Greene, Madison, Stanton, if you live in Barbersville, if you live in Nellysford or Nelson County, if you live in Lovingston, if you live in Keswick, in Troy, in Gordonsville, Zion's Crossroads, in Mineral, Sandardsville, Culpeper, and you throw shade or you knock the Charlottesville brand, you are only hurting yourself. Central Virginia goes as Charlottesville goes, and our home values in Central Virginia are as tied and as associated with Charlottesville, Virginia and the University of Virginia as any other metric or KPI, key performance indicator, that you can name. So when you kick Charlottesville when it's down, all you're doing is kicking your home values. That's all you're doing. And as John Blair put in this fantastic comment, cities need the connective tissue of public events and a sense of hospitality to birth, nurture, and mature community. There is no space in a 300,000 person market, Central Virginia, more centered or focused or more of an epicenter than the downtown mall. The downtown mall is not just the heartbeat of Charlottesville. The downtown mall is the epicenter of Central Virginia. Central Virginia's epicenter is the downtown mall. And to throw shade and knock it and applaud the cancellation of first night or throw shade at the police and safety and quality of life on the downtown mall is throwing shade at your house and your home values. Work to solve problems. Work to build community. Work to be an agent of positive change. You're frustrated that first night Virginia didn't happen? Maybe you consider taking over, and we're already hearing that Drake Van de Castle didn't have the bandwidth to make this happen. The president of First Night Virginia didn't have the bandwidth to make it happen. Volunteer. Don't throw shade. This event was canceled because of a lack of volunteers, human capital, and fundraising.
Partially true.
What part's not?
I don't know that it failed because of a lack of volunteers. I think if the position had been offered, people would have stepped up and gotten this taken care of. I just don't think anyone knew that it needed work.
We didn't have enough manpower to make it happen. If we had more manpower, we could make this happen. City of Charlottesville and Albemarle County didn't do the fireworks in McIntyre Park. So Ray Cadell and Barbara Lundgren and Bob Shada's watching right now, Olivia Branch, they pull their manpower and their human capital together, and they start knocking on doors, and they raise some money, and they take a firework extravaganza that was supposed to happen in McIntyre Park during COVID on the 4th of July and say, hey, the Charlottesville city's not letting us do it? F that. We're Americans, and we're proud Central Virginians, Charlottesvillians, and Albemarle Countyans. We're going to figure out a way to do it, and we're going to move it to Wendell Woods Mountain next to Carter's Mountain. And we're going to knock on the doors, and we're going to go on the I Love CVille show to raise awareness for it, and we're going to fundraise for this damn event because we're proud Americans, and we want to see fireworks in the sky during COVID.
Yeah.
And what happened?
We had fireworks.
We had fireworks. Same thing should have happened with First Night Virginia.
I don't disagree, but like I said, if nobody knew there was an issue, a need, it's hard to get volunteers.
Well, compartmentalizing responsibility and then dropping said ball on responsibility is a problem.
I can't argue with that. You know what they say about vision?
You know what they say? Heavy is the head that wears the crown.
That too.
Heavy is the head that wears the crown. Because you have a lot of sleepless nights associated with the responsibilities in the crown.
No doubt.
Heavy is the head that wears the crown. Not canceled because of COVID, not canceled because of police staffing issues, not canceled because of safety, gangs, and guns. We had the Tom Tom Festival in a designated outdoor refreshment area with tens of thousands of people in a longer period of time hitting the downtown mall who were boozing until 2 a.m. First Night Virginia is not a boozing event. Tom Tom went off fabulously, the designated outdoor refreshment area. All right, a couple more topics. Charlottesville City Council agenda for Monday. I'm looking at the agenda for Monday. I don't know why this has not been reported by the TV stations, the newspapers, and the radio. One of the action items on the City Council agenda for Monday, it literally says, consent to city manager's appointment of chief of police. Monday, we're going to have the city manager appointing a police chief.
That's great.
I think it is great. I do have pause for concern. And here's my pause for concern. And this is the same pause of concern I have with the Whitehall District School Board meeting last night, where the school board was interviewing 9 candidates for the open seat for the Whitehall District, David Oberg's seat. Earlier this week, we have 3 candidates in a public forum for the community to get to know the short list of police chiefs. You're telling me in less than a week they've picked one?
How long would you like it to take?
This is what I'm reminiscent of. The National Football League, the NFL, they have a rule in place. It's called the Rooney Rule. I'm going to Google Rooney Rule so I can read the definition. Here's the Rooney Rule, Judah. You ready?
Yeah.
NFL clubs must interview at least 2 diverse candidates from the Career Development Advisory Panel list or a diverse candidate not currently employed by the club. Clubs must conduct an in-person interview with at least 1 external minority candidate for any GM or head coaching interview. So the NFL, because the NFL has been so proliferated, so dominated, so monopolized by white head football coaches, the National Football League put a rule in place called the Rooney Rule, where NFL programs had to interview. They have to, or they get fined. It's a big deal. They have to interview minority candidates before they make a hire.
Yeah.
Still, some NFL teams, despite this Rooney Rule, which I think is a great idea, diversity is great. We want diversity in thought and diversity in leadership, diversity in community, diversity in schooling, diversity in life. We want diversity. We want diversity. Okay? Still, some NFL teams, they skirt the Rooney Rule by doing token interviews. They have hand-picked head coaches who they want. Large majority there end up being white. And they have an interview with a minority candidate just to meet the criteria of the Rooney Rule. And we find in retrospect that that head coach, the one that gets hired, was communicating with the brass of the team prior to getting the job, them saying that they're going to pick him as the head coach, but we got to do these other interviews just to meet the rules. That's shady. That's sketchy. And that's shortcutting an important rule that's in place by the NFL. Charlottesville City Hall and City Council and local government did an open forum. An open forum that was announced right before Thanksgiving. Right before the Thanksgiving holiday. The forum that was announced right before the Thanksgiving holiday basically said, we're going to interview these people, 3 police chiefs, after the holiday. So they buried the news during a holiday break. And then they put such a short window of announcing that they're going to have this forum a few days later that no one really could plan or anticipate or get questions ready or even be there in person for the interviews of the police chiefs. Then they do the police forum with the 3 police chiefs. No one's in attendance. Very few people are watching. If it wasn't for socialist dog mom Molly Cogner, even fewer would know about it. And then after a forum that happens earlier this week with 3 candidates for the police chief, we find out on the city council agenda that Michael Rogers is going to appoint it to a police chief less than a week later. This is reminiscent of the Rooney Rule in the NFL with head coaches and NFL brass picking people, but doing interviews and forums and candidate conversations just to appease the masses, to appease perception. They already knew who was going to be the police chief. They knew who the police chief was going to be. The public forum was done for public perception and to appease the masses. We know who the police chief's going to be. Now, in this situation, the choice is the right one. I just don't like the pomp and circumstance. Just like the school board. The school board interviewed 9 candidates yesterday for the Whitehall seat, an interim position. And then at the end of the school board meeting, the school board said this: we're going to have another meeting after we've interviewed these 9 people to hear the comments from the public on the 9 people we interviewed. And then we're going to pick somebody.
Okay.
That's literally what they said. The school board said yesterday, at our next meeting, we're going to get public comment and a choice will be announced. How can you digest the public comment that quickly for such a paramount and critically important position like school board? All they're doing is a dog and pony show. It's the pomp and circumstance that pisses me off. It's very reminiscent of the surveys. Albemarle County Public Schools, let's get surveys to parents. Should we rename Kale Elementary? Should we rename Jack Jewett Elementary? Should we rename rebrand Sutherland Elementary? Should we rebrand Meriwether Lewis Elementary? They send out surveys to the parents. The majority of the people in these surveys, the parents of the kids, are saying, do not rebrand the schools. Still, they rebrand them. The majority of the parents, when they realize that rebranding is going to happen, vote on what names should be selected for the rebranding. The number one selections don't get picked.
Yeah.
What is the point of having the surveys if the majority, and I'm talking large majority of the parents, say don't rebrand, still the rebranding happens, then the majority of the parents pick a name and that name is not chosen? What is the point of doing that? It's called pomp and circumstance. It's called perception management. It's called a dog and pony show. And what it is disingenuous. And it creates distrust between taxpayers, citizens, and government, bureaucracy.
And you think appointing the police chief is the same thing as that?
They already know. I don't have any inside knowledge on this. I have inside knowledge on a lot of stuff. I don't have any inside knowledge on this. Who wants to bet, and I could be wrong. I very well could be wrong. I'd bet someone $20 it's going to be Tito Durrett. I think it's going to be Tito Durrett. Dude grew up in Charlottesville. He went to Charlottesville High School. He was a police explorer. He was on the traffic department, the head of it. He was a part of the SWAT department. He's been an interim police chief. He's had almost every position in the department. He matured into a man as a Charlottesville Police Department officer.
Yeah.
Tito Durrett should be the pick.
Yeah.
But just tell us.
Well,
tell us.
I agree that he's a great decision.
Don't do the dog and pony show.
But how do you know it's not just due diligence?
Okay. Because I'm a man of common sense.
Okay.
Would you say doing the surveys for the rebranding of the schools was due diligence?
We're not talking about the same thing. I agree.
How about the school board?
I agree with you on the surveys.
How about the school board last night saying, Albemarle County School Board saying yesterday, we're going to hear from 9 candidates.
Mm-hmm.
And then at our next meeting, we want the public to come to the meeting so you can tell us who you want to be on the school board.
I thought it was for comments.
Comments on the candidate interviews from the public. They're asking Whitehall and all of Albemarle County to come to the next meeting so they can give their take on who should be in this seat. And then as soon as they make that announcement, they say, oh, by the way, we'll make the pick at that meeting too. That doesn't strike you as disingenuous?
Perhaps.
It doesn't strike you that an agenda for city council has been in the works for weeks, but the forum to interview the candidate happened days ago? That doesn't strike you as disingenuous?
I would need more information on that particular case.
This is the kind of maneuvering that creates distrust. It's not transparent. I expect Tito Durrett to be announced as the police chief of Charlottesville, Virginia on Monday at the city council meeting. I have no inside information. Tito Durrett is the guy that I think should be the police chief. And nothing that I said today is any reflection of Tito Durrett. It's a reflection of the process. And nothing I said today is any reflection of the 9 candidates that were interviewed yesterday by the Albemarle County Board of Supervisors. It's a reflection of the process. Just like the process of sending surveys to parents about rebranding schools and then ignoring those surveys to do whatever the hell Dr. Matthew Haas and his cabinet wants. The process is disingenuous. It's disingenuous. Now I want to give you a take from Deep Throat. The I Love CVille Network's version of Deep Throat is Neil Williamson. I want to respond to Neil's comment here. He believes the police chief selection committee has a membership of 1. And what he means by that is Michael Rogers, the interim city manager. City council has to sign off on approval, though. Michael Rogers picks the police chief. City council has to approve it. So while the mercenary city manager, the consultant, Robert Bob Group's Michael Rogers, the mercenary city manager, the hired gun, gets to pick the police. And how about that, ladies and gentlemen? How about the fact that there's a mercenary consultant city manager picking the police chief of Charlottesville? There's some irony. Is there not some irony right there? A hired city manager, consultant, mercenary is picking the permanent chief of police. If there's not irony there, then I don't know what that word means. And he says, Neil Williamson, who I love Neil Williamson. He made me laugh today on the 400th episode of Real Talk with Keith Smith, a belly laugh like I've never done in months. He says the police chief selection committee is a membership of 1 person. He's talking Michael Rogers, but it's got to be approved by 5 city councilors. So while Rogers makes the pick, the 5 city councilors can veto it. Yesterday's show, Carol Thorpe, I'll get to your comments, I promise. Maddie Smith said, I would not have known any of this was happening without this network. Thank you, Maddie. Madison, you are great people. I thoroughly enjoy seeing you around the downtown mall, Madison. Thoroughly enjoy seeing you, Madison. Carol Thorpe says, she's the queen of Jack Jewett. In my opinion, Jerry, you are correct. Whether it's forums or surveys, the fix is typically in well before these happen. Carol Thorpe is a woman of common sense. It's just like the head coaching hires in the National Football League. You're a big-time Giants fan, Carol Thorpe. The head coaches, the coaches are picked before the interviews happen. It's a dog and pony show. Thank you for commenting, Queen of Jack Jewett. I'll get to your other comments in moments. Yesterday's show, I talked about the Ivy Road corridor, and I did that based on a real estate transaction that Sean Tubbs reported upon. The UVA Foundation purchased the Moe's Barbecue building, and the UVA Foundation, let me get the exact amount here. This used to be an Asian restaurant. Now it's a fabulous barbecue joint. A deal that I helped broker between Mike and Ashley Abrams and Derek Bond, friends of the show. This building was purchased for $2,575,000 by the UVA Foundation, University of Virginia Foundation. The assessment of this building on Ivy Road is $927,400. UVA paid $2,575,000 for a building that has an assessed value of $927,400. The reason UVA paid that much is because Mr. Lee, the owner of the building, one of the most unassuming yet powerful and influential commercial landlords in Charlottesville, Albemarle, and Greene County, Mr. Lee, he realized the University of Virginia wanted his building so bad, he put a price tag on it that was, 3x, almost 3x of what its assessed value was, and UVA said, let's rock and roll, baby. And they had to rock and roll because they're playing Monopoly on Ivy Road. And as you're playing Monopoly on Ivy Road and you own Park Street, which is the Ivy Square shopping center that you bought for $20 million, you better get, what's another blue square next to Park Street? Boardwalk?
Yeah, I believe that's it.
You better freaking buy Boardwalk, which is the Moe's building right next to it.
Yeah.
And if Park Street is the $20 million purchase of Ivy Square Shopping Center, the Foods of All Nations Shopping Center, you damn well better buy Boardwalk, which is the 0.47 acre lot right next to it. Playing Monopoly, the UVA Foundation. So I said on yesterday's program, as the UVA Foundation buys Ivy Road and connects to Ivy Road to its trophy property, the Boar's Head Resort, and builds Academic Village 2.0, that's going to be an academic village. There's going to be a hotel there, a conference center there, the School of Data Science is going there. They already own Boar's Head Resort. As they expand that way, I said the Lewis Mountain neighborhood, which is a neighborhood that probably starts at $800,000. The houses aren't even that big, and they're certainly older, and it goes up to millions of dollars. And the reason those homes have such value is because you can walk to UVA from there. So you have a lot of expensive real estate in the Lewis Mountain neighborhood. I said this week, yesterday in fact, that the Lewis Mountain neighborhood, a Tony, expensive, affluent, wealthy neighborhood, was going to eventually evolve by the time my soon-to-be 5-year-old kid gets to 18 years of age and potentially could go to the University of Virginia as a first year, like his dad did, like his uncle did, and like his father, like his grandfather did. By the time our oldest son considers the University of Virginia as an 18-year-old, I think that Lewis Mountain neighborhood is no longer going to be a Tony, wealthy, affluent, $800,000 and up neighborhood. Instead, what that neighborhood is going to become is it's going to be UVA student housing that accommodates Academic Village 2.0. Students walking from the Lewis Mountain neighborhood to Academic Village 2.0. The I Love CVille Network's version of Deep Throat interacts with me via direct message on Twitter. And this dude is a smart guy. I'm not trying to blow up his spot. I had a chance to meet him briefly. Is a data guy, a numbers guy, a money guy, a finance guy. He sends me this direct message yesterday after the show that is dynamite. I'm going to read it verbatim to you. Jerry, you were spot on with your comments today about Lewis Mountain and student housing. The prospect of the incursion of student housing was why Lewis Mountain residents were so freaked out about being tagged as medium intensity in the future land use map. Besides the quality of life issues you rightly point out, student housing also barrels into a neighborhood as an economic juggernaut. Consider these economics, please, Jerry. UVA students pay $1,000 a month per bedroom these days, conservatively, for new product. So if a developer buys a house in Lewis Mountain on 0.25 acres for $800,000, that developer can tear down the house. Under the zoning, they can build 9 units with 0 affordable housing requirement. So a developer builds 3.5 stories on a 3,000 square foot floor plate, creating 9 1,500 square foot 4-bedroom apartments. The cost of construction would be about $2,700,000. The annual rent roll would be $430,000. That's a 7% cap rate or a valuation of $6.1 million. That is a financial bulldozer, Jerry. The only kind of construction that our zoning does hold back is student housing. That is done by design. The early 1990s downzoning that created the R1S was specifically aimed at preserving family neighborhoods from being overrun by student housing. Now, I know what that means, but I understand not everyone may know what that means. So I'm going to put this in extremely layman's terminology. Here we go. Charlottesville City is 10.2 square miles. More than 50% roughly 53% of Charlottesville City is zoned for single-family detached homes, the homes that families live in. Over half of it. One of the reasons Charlottesville City is zoned over half for single-family detached homes is so it does not become a proliferation. I'll use a different word. So it does not become a lot of UVA student housing, rentals for students, for 18 to 22-year-olds. With the upzoning that's being percolated, I'll use a different word. With the upzoning that's being considered and is nearing approval, a neighborhood like Lewis Mountain can go from single-family houses for families and can be targeted by developers, entrepreneurial ones, who see the proximity of this neighborhood to the University of Virginia and what UVA is trying to do with Ivy Road. So if you're a deep-pocketed developer, if you have money, you buy these $800,000, $1 million homes in the Lewis Mountain neighborhood. Then you spend $2,700,000. Let's just say you buy the house for $1 million, and then you spend, let's just say, $3 million building student housing. So you're in for $4 million. $1 million for the existing house, you tear it down. $3 million to build an apartment for student housing. That apartment for student housing gives you 9 4-bedroom apartments, 36 units of student housing. Those 36 units of student housing give you annual rent of $430,000. Immediately, the apartments that you've built in the Lewis Mountain neighborhood have a valuation north of $6 million. So if you spent $4 million and you got a valuation of over $6 million on what you spent, you have a delta of $2 million. And because of that delta of $2 million, and because of that rent roll, the rents that you collect every year, totaling about $430,000, you can then go to the bank, get your property appraised, and refinance. Get money out and do it again. Hell, there's so much money in this area, you may not even need to do that. So you will see Deep Throat, a man of finance, data, and common sense, backs my take, a take of vision, common sense, and entrepreneurial mindset. We combine those two perspectives together, and we show you how the Lewis Mountain neighborhood is very soon to be JPA 2.0. 14th Street 2.0. And here's the thing. If this happens one time, if you get 36 units, 36 bedrooms of UVA students, UVA undergrads, 36 bedrooms next to your single-family detached house, how long are you going to stay in your single-family detached house before you say, there's 36 third years, there's 36 fourth years having keg parties, ripping bong hits, slapping skins, taking beer bongs, closing down the bars, parking their cars. Do you have another word that rhymes with ours that I can throw in there? You get my point. How long till you start seeing 36 third years slapping skins, ripping bong hits, pounding beers, parking their cars and closing down their bars before you sell your house as well to a developer? And just like that, as he put it, the financial bulldozer completely changes the brand identity of a neighborhood that otherwise was a wealthy, Tony, and affluent Lewis Mountain. I don't know. Is that called gentrification? We talked about this yesterday. Is that, viewers and listeners, is that called gentrification? What is that called? I know, certainly evolution.
Yeah.
It's certainly the evolution of a neighborhood. But is it gentrification? Can you gentrify? I guess you can gentrify out someone who owns $1 million home.
I don't think I'd call it gentrification if they're leaving because they don't like their neighbors.
Well, it certainly could impact their bottom line, because if that 36 unit apartment tower in Lewis Mountain has a valuation of $6.1 million and it's right next to another house that has a valuation of $900,000, that person that has the $900,000 house right next to the $6.1 million house, their assessments are going to go up. Because the assessor has to assess the value of the property in totality and what it can become. And a perfect example of this is Ix Park. Ix Park is being assessed and taxed with the full potential of the dirt and the land. And it's not being taxed and assessed as if it was rentals in an old tactile or textile mill factory. Ix Park, Ludwig Kutner and Alan Kajin are being taxed by the city of Charlottesville by the potential of what Ix Park could be. Apartments, tall towers. It is not being taxed on converting the Ix building into rentals and storefronts and a brewery and the best by far in the whole entire world pet store in America, even the whole world, Animal Connection and Patty Zeller. What do you call that? Is that gentrification? Whatever it is,
I still wouldn't. I mean, is it are you talking about an apartment block, or are you talking about a house?
They tear down the house. They use the opportunity from the zoning to build 36 bedrooms in the same footprint that the house existed, and they charge $1,000, which is under a month for the bedrooms. That gives you $430,000 in rent and a value in the apartments of over $6 million. That apartment will have collateral damage for the single-family houses next door.
So it's basically going to be an apartment building.
Yeah, dude. Yes.
And you're going to build that on the lot of a single house? I mean, okay. But
it goes up, dog.
I get it. And you still think that someone's house next to that is going to be assessed based on a $6 million building? It's
a comp.
It's no longer a house, though.
It's dirt. The value of the dirt.
So you're saying that because all of those houses could potentially be torn down and turned into apartment houses, that they would be okay.
Price is Right.
I mean, that sounds messed up to me, but that's never stopped anyone.
You know who is undefeated? One of the few undefeated teams and opponents and forces. Father Time with athletes. No athlete and no team beats Father Time. The Los Angeles Lakers couldn't beat Father Time with Magic Johnson and Kareem and James Worthy and Byron Scott. The Detroit Pistons couldn't beat Father Time with Isaiah Thomas and Bill Laimbeer and Joe Dumars and Dennis Rodman. The LA Lakers couldn't beat Father Time with Kobe Bryant and Shaquille O'Neal. The Golden State Warriors can't beat Father Time with Klay Thompson and Stephen Curry and Draymond Green. The Brooklyn Nets can't beat Father Time with Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant. Okay. Father Time is undefeated. You know what else is undefeated? Affordable housing can't beat Father Time. Affordable housing can't beat the invisible hand of capitalism. Upzoning can't beat the invisible hand of capitalism. Land trusts cannot beat the invisible hand of capitalism. altruistic, philanthropic benefactors cannot beat the invisible hand of capitalism. Unjaded politicians cannot beat the invisible hand of capitalism. Lewis Mountain, circa 2035, when my kid is a rising first year potentially at the University of Virginia. Let's see if he can rent a room with his homies. Hopefully he's not doing any of those extracurricular activities that I outlined that his father did while in college. Hopefully.
I'm sure he will.
Hopefully he's not doing that like his father did. But maybe he'll be renting a room in the Lewis Mountain neighborhood and making his mother and father very proud. All right, 2 other topics. It's 1:46. Brennan Armstrong is transferring from the University of Virginia. Brennan Armstrong is the most statistically speaking accomplished quarterback in University of Virginia history. Statistically, Brennan Armstrong is more accomplished than Don Mikowski, Sean Moore, Matt Schaub, Marcus Hagans, Bryce Perkins, Mike Rowe. Brennan Armstrong owns most of the records for gunslingers in Charlottesville, Scott Stadium, and at UVA. Brennan Armstrong has experienced a fall from grace that is indicative of athletics. On one day, you're a hero, and on the next day, you're a zero. And that's the Darwinistic nature of sports. Yesterday, he announced he's transferring from the University of Virginia and entered his name into the transfer portal. Did I ever think that this southpaw, backyard football, gritty, hard-nosed, hard-hitting, body of a safety, leader, with the strawberry chin strap and diamond earrings in both ears, a young man who played safety in high school but became a household name under center in Charlottesville? Did I ever imagine this guy would be in another uniform on Saturdays? No way. Not a chance. Tony Elliott takes over the program, and he immediately implements a pro-style offense, an offense that he ran at Clemson. That offense never fit Brennan Armstrong. Compounding the matter was an offensive line that had little to no experience, and a team that had high hopes and aspirations fell flat, and most of that disappointment rested on the shoulders of Brennan Armstrong and Tony Elliott. One of the elements that surprised me throughout the tragedy at the University of Virginia with the killing of 3 football players, I was surprised not to see Brennan Armstrong more front and center throughout this tragedy. We never heard Brennan Armstrong comment about the tragedy. We never heard statements from the quarterback and the captain. And perhaps now we know why. Because he was going to transfer from the school. I think Brennan Armstrong would make a hell of a pick by another school that needs an experienced quarterback. Next year will be his 6th year in college football. 6th. Do I think Brennan Armstrong is an NFL quarterback? To be determined. Did I think Brennan Armstrong was an NFL quarterback 2 years ago and Bronco Mendenhall's last year? Hell yes. Hell yes. Do I think Brennan Armstrong is an NFL quarterback right now? To be determined. Is part of that fall from grace Tony Elliott's responsibility? Absolutely. A coach runs a scheme or a system that's suited for the talent he has on the roster. And Elliott came in from day one, and he wanted it to be his system and his way. And his system and his way failed miserably in the first year, despite having significant talent. Do I think Tony Elliott can make this football program a contender in the ACC? Yes, I hope so. But what he did in the first year was he rolled out a system that did not match the skill set of his talent. And as a result, the team played horribly. And you took an all-world shortlist Heisman Trophy candidate quarterback and you made him look like a scrub. And right now, Brennan Armstrong has one last chance as a sixth-year college football quarterback to make a name for himself again. Because if he doesn't, he's not going to play on Sundays. He's going to be coaching football on Friday nights. And the last thing I want to highlight, Tom Powell and the toy lift. It's going on right now. There are stakeholders in this community who are up in the air on a bucket in a crane, hanging from a crane, standing in a bucket in weather that is pretty darn cold. And they're doing it all in the name of raising money and awareness and toys for kids. I'm going to give you the toy lift story. During Christmas 1988, Toy Lift founder Tom Powell looked around his house and saw how lucky he and his family were with all the gifts his children had received. There was a problem, though. A number of the gifts had not been opened or had not even been played with. That got Tom thinking. What if there was a way that he could help those less fortunate families in the area and help provide toys to families during the holidays? With this in mind, Tom Powell, in December of 1989, put himself in a bucket at his gas station on the corner of Route 29 and Hydraulic Road, and he sat there, bundled up in the cold, in a bucket. Tom Powell said he would not come down out of the bucket until he collected 500 toys for local children for the holidays. The morning turned to noon. Noon turned to evening. And Tom looked down and he saw that a fair number of toys had been collected. When he asked for the count and how many toys were below the bucket, his staff said there were well over 500 toys that had already been collected. In that moment, Tom decided to stay in the bucket, bundled in a jacket in the freezing cold until 10 p.m. at night to see if he could get to 1,000 toys. Tom stayed in that bucket as the afternoon turned to dinner time, as dinner time turned to nighttime, and as the clock ticked to 10 p.m. Tom got out of the bucket, out of the freezing cold, and started counting the toys he had collected for the holidays. He had met his goal. And on that chilly night in 1989, the toy lift began. 30 years later, the toy lift has become one of the premier charity events for this community. It's held on the first Friday of every December in multiple locations now, with thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of toys collected for children across the Central Virginia community. I close with this message. It takes the effort of getting in a bucket in the parking lot of a gas station to collect 1,000 toys and to launch a charity that is as influential as Charlottesville and Central Virginia have. If we can duplicate that effort, instead of kicking a brand in a town when it's down, we will be left in a better place for our children to grow and mature within. Please keep that message in mind as we head through the holidays and into this weekend. Thank you kindly for watching the I Love CVille Show. For Judah Wickower, my name is Jerry Miller.